Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey, didn't see you there. You know, there's a lot to love about Bowen Island. From fantastic vistas, such as the one I'm standing at right now, to wildlife. Towering Pacific rainforests, birds, seals, orcas, the whole 9 yards. Just one issue, though. It's kind of hard to get to unless you live in West Van. Alright, so if I leave from White Rock around, let's say 8 a.m., it takes me about an hour to get over to the Ironworkers Bridge. Then I sit in traffic for, I don't know, half an hour just waiting to get to Horseshoe Bay. It's only 25 kilometers, but it takes an absurd amount of time. Then I get on the boat. Luckily, the ferry to Bowen Island, it's only 20 minutes. Fantastic. Except then I'm here the entire day thinking about how I have to do exactly the same thing coming home. Same nightmare, waiting in traffic. Why is North Vancouver like that?
But what if I told you there used to be a way to travel directly between White Rock and some of BC's most beloved beach communities? No traffic, no headaches, just beautiful views and, well, yeah, I guess those are the big selling points. Let's talk White Rock. In the early 1900s, the Blaine Journal in Washington State reported that a car ferry between White Rock and Sydney on the Saanich Peninsula was in the works. In 1915, the Samiamu Gazette said pier extensions would allow 2 steamship lines to service the blossoming community.
Safe to say neither of those happened. It's the second episode of the show and I've done the same cutaway like 5 times at this point. I'm gonna get new writers. I'm the writer, so.
Another local paper, the Samiamu Sun, made a more interesting statement. The White Rock Pier is useless. Today, the White Rock Pier is among the city's most defining features and one of Metro Vancouver's most iconic attractions. But back then, it was, well, also among the city's most defining features and viewed as an attraction. Some things never change. Anyways, although the pier and accompanying wharf saw heavy industrial use in their early years, they began to deteriorate and rot by the 30s.
It was time for a makeover.
Rotting planks were stripped out and replaced, and braces were added to stop the structure from swaying, all at the cost of just $1,600.
You know, honestly, that's not half bad. Well, in all fairness, that would be about $30,000 today. Are you sure it looks best with me this far away from the camera?
Ferry service, as I alluded to earlier, was not part of the upgrades. But that doesn't mean passenger ships were out of the equation. Quite the opposite. Enter the Union Steamship Company of British Columbia. Founded in 1889, they were one of the very first companies to be founded in the modern city of Vancouver, only 3 years after its incorporation. On July 31st, 1931, the ex-minesweeper ship the SS Lady Cynthia arrived at the White Rock Pier, loaded with 130 excursionists. Initial service was provided from White Rock to the provincial capital of Victoria on the SS Lady Alexandra. Here's what the itinerary would have looked like. 6:30 a.m., the ship would dock at the pier. Between then and 8 a.m., the whistle would sound every 15 minutes. That's 7 times each morning. At 8, the vessel would make its way from White Rock to the Garden City.
Yes, that actually is Victoria's nickname. Maybe I should start a spin-off series, Let's Talk Victoria. No, that just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
After 4.5 hours of traversing the Strait of Georgia, passengers would arrive in Victoria at 12:30 p.m. The return trip would depart at approximately 5 p.m., reaching White Rock at 9:30 p.m. By 1935, the service was expanded to include voyages to Sechelt on the Sunshine Coast, and of course, Bowen Island.
Do you have any idea how much it costs me to come here for one day to shoot for 1 minute? Not much, but still.
Although the service schedule for the line is a topic of debate, Whistle Up the Inlet by Gerald A. Rushton refers to the service from White Rock as being occasional. The Cynthia and Alexandra were primarily used on more heavily frequented routes, usually departing from the Vancouver harbor instead. Over the years, a variety of special voyages were made, including the Surrey Citizens Picnic Day trip to Victoria in 1932, which was the result of the Union Steamship's White Rock representative, George M. Thrift, son of H.T. Thrift, convincing City Council to make the event into a full-fledged civic holiday.
After all, nothing says I love my city more than having a community picnic in a different city 80 kilometers away on an island. Over there, in the distance. That's not even the right island. It's somewhere over there.
After the picnic trip, summer excursions with an orchestra and dance floor on board became the norm. The first Canadian Legion annual excursion of 1940 was chartered on the Lady Alexandra, as well as day trips sponsored by the municipality of Langley. If partying on the Alec wasn't your cup of tea, the Lady Cynthia would occasionally offer scenic tours through inland waters, namely the Fraser River, for just $1.50. But the good times wouldn't last forever, as although the service remained fairly popular, 1941 was the last year the ships would make the trip from Victoria to White Rock and vice versa for over half a decade, as the Second World War intensified.
In 1947, she would return to White Rock, but by that point, the service was already a dead ship sailing. There are more 2 out of 10 jokes in this episode than actual fun facts. Let that sink in. Get it? Sink in. I'm talking about boats.
In 1959, Union Steamship's passenger service would pay a visit to Davy Jones' locker. Ships just weren't the preferred form of transportation anymore, plain and simple. The automobile was more common than ever, and commercial air travel revolutionized long-distance voyages. But for those still yearning to sail the high seas, or just get to Victoria, Bowen Island, or any number of islands on the BC coast, the arrival of BC ferries in 1960 would fill the niche the steamships once occupied. Another issue was this new thing called safety. Apparently, new regulations on fire safety on vessels were a hindrance to operations, yet another reason for the service to be extinguished.
Get it?
But what happened to the 2 vessels that serviced the route? The Lady Alexandra became a floating restaurant in Cole Harbor in 1954, eventually being transported to Redondo Beach in Southern California to become, you guessed it, another floating restaurant. A massive storm surge on February 9, 1980 caused the ship to partially capsize, being deemed a complete loss by the owners. It now lies 80 kilometers off the California coast as an artificial dive reef. The Lady Cynthia, on the other hand, met her fate far quicker. After being purchased by Coast Ferries in 1951, she was scrapped in 57. So will passenger ship service ever return to White Rock? I pondered the same question regarding the railroad last episode, but the answer is far clearer this time. In 1953, the breakwater at the end of the pier was constructed, forever inhibiting large vessels from docking there. When planning for BC Ferries' mainland terminal, White Rock was briefly, and I do mean briefly, considered, but Tsawwassen was eventually chosen instead. The White Rock Board of Trade tried to gain interest in restarting the service, but you can probably take a guess at how that went.
The steamships are an often forgotten chapter in White Rock's history, but an important one nonetheless. Sounds like it's a good place to cap it off, I think. Good ending. I'm going to check my ferry tickets. Canceled. Ooh, next boat is in 6 hours, though. All right, well, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to swim home. Have a good time on land. All dry and nice. Yep. There. That's a lot of bird poop.